I would like to address my question to Mr. Wolf Dietrich Heim, the ambassador of Austria. Could you tell us something about what we discussed here, that we are good students or not good students, we fulfill our homework well or not well? I know you cannot have official speeches, but in any case, we would like to help our government to be ready to the agreement to be signed in November. So your opinion is very precious.
Well, thank you very much. I'm more than happy to participate and join the debate. If I may refer to your analogy, I think we are not talking about pupils and the school's situation in this context, although I would refer to the second question. Is it likely for something to happen in half a year's time? Then I would say, this is like asking or guaranteeing a student half a year before he finishes his final exams that he will pass or he will not pass, no matter what he does. So I think that's one thing. We still have half a year, and as I know Ukraine well enough, after 2.5 years, things very often happen under time constraints and sort of time-related pressure that I think in some cases can be helpful. If I remember how much has been achieved in the run-up to the Euro 2012, and a lot of positive, I think, things have been achieved in a short time. This is also the general situation in this year, which I think has all the prerequisites to be a year reform. While, as I agree with Member Paul, next year, I think on the European side, as much as in Ukraine, with the run-up to the presidential elections in March 2015, will be unlikely to see structural and systemic reforms. So this is, I think, the time, half a year, where I would see better conditions for that to happen. So much for the second question. Is it likely? It's not very likely for me to speculate on that. I very much like the questions that you put down. I think these are very pertinent, and I would like to refer to the first one. What price will Ukraine pay if it goes down this alley? And I think that there is quite a bit of cost and pain involved with the association agreement and the free trade agreement, if they are seriously implemented, if they are looked at, and if there is a clear willingness to do that seriously. I think there will be sectors, there will be regions, and there will be businesses in certain sectors which will suffer. I think there's no question about that. This is any transformation that does imply also difficulty. But I also like to compare that to a situation where people who have for a long time not respected certain rules or regulations, at one point they migrate to a more law-abiding behavior. This could be seen as a painful adaptation, and I think this is what modernization, as we talk about the association agreement, as a driver for modernization in certain areas where Ukraine is in great need. This could happen, and I'm confident there would be enough incentive to do that. If I remember Austria's integration, and this is about less than 20 years ago, where we very much were in a similar situation, eventually leading to membership. I think membership is nothing that I would like to discuss at this stage, because that is somewhat too hypothetical. If I look at realistic approaches in a sort of multi-annual time frame. But what happened in Austria, and I think this is something that I would hope for Ukraine, we had a very comprehensive screening of all the laws and regulations when we prepared for European integration, and we found out that there are many laws that were totally useless, were outdated, still in force, and have to be reviewed, and a good part of it were just scrapped. I think this would be extremely helpful if Ukraine, in a systemic way, approached their legal base, their acquis, and sorted out what is useless, what is creating too much cost, and what can be scrapped. As for the benefits that I see, I mean, if I talk about costs, I would certainly look at the benefits. I think Ukraine would benefit if there are more rules and less discretionary and arbitrary decisions. Now, if I look at the different integration models, this is something that I would associate with the European integration process. That it's a rules-based history, and it is certainly more focused on the rights of the individual. When we talk about what is sort of the individual's, benefit, I would not like to talk about individual Ukrainians, be they in prison or be they in Panchenko Street, whether they benefit from this or that. It's very much about the individual and the right of the individual that will be strengthened in many respects. Certainly if the spirit of the association agreement is respected and if a large part of it will be implemented. One has to be realistic. It's a large package that we look at. We would not expect everything to be implemented in a day, but I think we have a clear priority, and I would explain the somewhat more optimistic approach that we've seen some capitals with some European Union member states over the last few months, in the sense that, and I agree with that, we have a very clear base of what the European Union has as a position on Ukrainian affairs. And I think that was clearly pointed out in the conclusions of the December Council meeting, and I think even more helpful on that road to signing the association agreement was the February 25th summit, where we, I think, found a clear and common understanding of what needs to be done and what exactly we are talking about. I think this is very helpful because from that point on we see that we have a clear understanding on the Ukrainian side what we are talking about. I think these benchmarks are clear enough, and from there I hope that we will be able to see systemic progress in the I think defined 3 criteria. I don't need to repeat them, but for me it is very important to see progress in the electoral reform, and I'm somewhat, if I also look back in time, I would not have expected this to be so difficult to come up with a electoral law to go about the 5 districts where we don't have results from last October's parliamentary election. So in that respect we are a little bit late, and as a base for the other general electoral laws, I think this is a key piece, and there we've seen some progress on the Ukrainian decision-making side. I think so much for what I've seen. I would enjoy sort of pointing out that we are in a somewhat interesting situation. If I look back, I arrived 2.5 years ago, a few months before the visa liberalization action plan has been signed. This was not an easy exercise on the side of some European member states. We've had a clear action plan, list of I think laws and criteria that were defined, and I think we are in a phase where we're coming close. It may not take a long time, but we're still not there. But knowing that this was an exercise that Ukraine wanted to get done in probably less than a year and a half, then we understand how difficult it is to implement reforms at a time, if we look back, when they could have been implemented and not only decided easily, quickly, speedily, but that has not happened. And in this context, I think there is no question who was competent, who was in charge, who should have done it, and whether it would have been in Ukraine's interest to proceed much faster on the visa liberalization process. And I think that is also helping to understand that all these reforms that we are talking about do not come off the hand very easily, but I'm convinced that they are realistically achievable, that they are possible, and I hope they will be coming down the line. Now, I agree there's no plan B, but to put it simply into words, what happens if we do not get to the signing this year of the association agreement? Then I think we would see a whole set of negative, potentially negative developments for Ukraine. In trade, we would see much more diversion of trade and not creation of trade and opportunities. We would see much more energy dependence and less energy efficiency. We would see a slower modernization, and I think what is worse, we would see a serious loss of sovereignty on the Ukrainian side, not only as regards the formulation of its trade policy, but I think potentially in much wider areas, and I think that is something that is very serious, and that I think is the key point that is at stake. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. I would come back to the point of benefits of the association agreement signing.